Good morning. Thursday, the 23rd of April. Yesterday I explained that when we cross over to God, a change takes place. We start transforming and becoming more like Christ, and that's God's purpose in us. As a result, there's visible evidence in us of being Christians, being disciples of Jesus. If this evidence is not there, then something is wrong. The first piece of evidence is that there has to be fruit, and this is evident in the fruits of the Spirit in us: love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And the second is that there has to be love, not just inside us, but expressed externally, lived out, practiced, visible. It's something that can't be contained if it's really inside of us. In fact, it's so important that Jesus added it as a new command. He said in John 13:34-35, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Now I was saying, what are the outward signs that people can look at us and say, that guy's a Christian? Well, this is it. Everyone will know that you are a disciple of Jesus. Everyone will know that you are a Christian if you love one another. So love is a defining mark of being a Christian, and it's a visible mark. But more than this, Jesus tells us that the love we have as Christians comes from the fact that He is in us and He is love. In 1 John 4:7-9, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed His love among us. He sent His one and only Son into the world that we might live through Him." So I think this is such a powerful passage. He says here that if you have been born again, you know God. And then you naturally express that in love. Because if you know God, God is love and He's in you. It's a logical equation. I hope it makes sense. You become immersed in that love and you live in it because He who is love is in you. And so you have no fear of the present or the future. You're secure in your eternal destiny. You rest in that place of love in God. He says it like this in 1 John 4:16-18. "And so we know and rely on the love God has for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world we are like Jesus. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." So it's important to understand this, that when we're immersed in the love of God and the love of God is in us, we don't have any fear anymore. We know who we believe in, and we know that we can trust Him perfectly, and we know Him, and He is love. So it's important to realize that this love flows naturally out of the fact that God is in us. It's not work that we have to do. It's not one more thing on a list of duties that we have to perform to love someone. No, it's got to flow naturally out of the fact that God is in us, and it's out of the fact of who we have become, who we are, not what we do. That love will help us hugely then to keep God's commands. The fact that we can religiously try to keep His commands, to cross over to Him by our own works, can equally apply to our attempt to love. When it doesn't come from God living in us, it's a work. We might achieve something in it, but it's not what God is looking for. Jesus spoke about this to the religious men of His day, the Pharisees and Sadducees. In John 5:41-42, He said, "I do not accept glory from human beings, but I know you. I know that you do not have the love of God in your hearts." And He was speaking to the religious group of the day. And He confronts them in an incredible passage in Matthew when they were trying to trick Him and catch Him out and make Him stumble. In Matthew 22:34-40, hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested Him with this question: "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it: love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." Now, this is actually a spectacular answer. Here we have an expert, a professional in the law. In other words, someone filled with every last detail of religious knowledge that he'd studied and he'd practiced and he was a professional in. And he's testing Jesus. Jesus answers brilliantly, cuts straight to the chase, perfectly understanding the heart, the essence of the law, not the letter of the law. He doesn't put one commandment above another, but he defines the whole law in its core principles. Love God with everything you have and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I read an interesting commentary on this. A small extract from that says, God's moral expectation of man can be briefly and powerfully said in these two sentences. If the life of God is real in our life, it will show by the presence of this love for God and for others. Isn't that beautiful? The Pharisees didn't want to love people. They had more important things to do. And we can easily get caught up in all sorts of busyness and all sorts of things, even good things in our lives. And we can get busy with religious duties. But Jesus wants us to get busy loving people. He says in John 15, 9 to 14 and 17, As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. And this is my command, love each other. It's packed full of treasures, this passage, isn't it? And Jesus ends it by saying that the greatest way we can express our love is when our lives are expended for someone other than ourselves, our friends, our family, even people we don't know. When we give our lives outside of ourselves, that's the greatest way we can express that love. And he summarizes it again very simply in 1 John 3:16. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Powerful. And then in the next chapter, 1 John 4:19 to 21, we love because he first loved us. Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. And he has given us this command. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. Pretty clear, isn't it? I think it's crystal clear. I hope so. If you belong to Jesus and are in him, in obedience, you will bear much fruit and you will overflow with love. You're a sheep and not a goat. Tomorrow I'll continue with what Jesus said. You are my friends if you do what I command. See you tomorrow.